Okay, ready to go? All right. Good evening. I'm Les Zeitz. I'm the editor of the Salem Reporter, and I want to welcome you to our town hall this evening. As you came in tonight, I'm sure you noticed that amazing blade light on the front of the Elsinore Theater. I looked at that as I came in tonight, and I thought, you know, that's the result of the Salem community pulling together to accomplish a project. That restoration reflects the history of Salem, of what we are as a community. We build, we restore, and we progress. That's been true since Jason Lee set up a mission outside of town 100 and some years ago, and he put us on the course that brings you and me here tonight. Consider that history for just a moment. Salem was founded 184 years ago. We are home to the oldest university in the West. We are home to an amazing medical complex that is Salem Health. We are home to schools that teach 38,000 children. And we are a community built by determination, united for the community. Consider, in 1889, in 3 weeks, back in those days, the community raised $20,000 to build what is the Thomas Woolen Mill. 6 years after the mill went into operation, it burned to the ground. And what did the people of Salem do? They united and built it again. Salem became, of course, the state's capital. We built one Capitol building, then we built a second. That one burned to the ground. What happened? We cleared the ashes, rolled up our sleeves, and we built a new one. These days, it's pretty easy to focus on the bad news in the community and in the world. But there is plenty good in your town. We have a fully staffed police and fire department. We have a library that's the envy of people around the state. We have a park system open to everyone of all ages and interests, with Bush Pasture Park, of course, being the jewel. We have streets, some not in great shape, but you can get there from here. And you see evidence from one end of town to the other of private investment. Drive down any street, what do you see? New apartments, new businesses, and new industry. We are charitable people here in Salem, from the Liberty House to the Boys and Girls Club to the American Red Cross. Tonight, you're going to hear from the people who want to chart the city's course in the coming years. But you, not they, will decide where we go as a community. Your attention tonight matters, but so does your vote. I ask you to listen to them and consider, what do you hear from these candidates that matches your own ambition for your city? Of course, there's a few house rules. Number one, cell phones muted and off. And please, this is a political event, but demonstrate company manners. No hooting, no hollering, no jeering. Applause is okay, but keep it within reason. Now let's get rolling to the reason you're here. First, each of the candidates will have 5 minutes to speak to you to seek your vote. They're going to be speaking in alphabetical order, last name, and they'll get a warning at 30 seconds. We will keep them on track. So to get us started, Mr. Cummings, the microphone is yours.
Well, good evening, everyone here, and thank you for coming and for the Salem Reporter hosting. My name is Chris Cummings, and I'm a proud call. My area here is Salem, my home. I'm native to Salem. I'm a parent, small business owner, and someone who has spent years working in our community and listening to the people who live here. I'm running for city council because what I keep hearing is simple. People want to feel safe again, they want the city that works, and they want to know that their tax dollars are actually making a difference, which I hope my opponent joins me in voting no for the gas tax as well on the main ballot. As I've knocked on doors across West Salem, the concerns are consistent. Families are worried about their safety in their neighborhoods, and businesses are dealing with theft and declining conditions. Frustration with homelessness and that feels unmanaged and unaccountable, and a growing concern that costs are going up, but the results are not. In fact, in West Salem, businesses are telling us that the crime is underreported because they don't see any value in reporting it anymore. Yes, millions of dollars a year are being passed through into the price of your groceries that you buy in West Salem. That should be a concern to each one of us, because the people who stop reporting crime, it doesn't mean that the crime is down, it means that the confidence is down. And let's be honest, I think this race really comes down to a choice. Voters have told me that they're not just looking for experience, they're looking for results. I believe there are two key differences in what I could bring to City Council. First, a results-driven approach versus maintaining the status quo. For the past several years, we've been seeing challenges grow, especially around homelessness, public safety, and livability. I'm not interested in continuing the approaches that are not delivering results. In my world, success isn't defined by how much we spend or how much programs we create. It's defined by outcomes. Are our neighborhoods safer? Are fewer people living on our streets? Are businesses staying and growing? If not, we need to change course. I'm certainly eager to see more future stats on our HST and REACH pilot programs. Second, active representation versus passive participation. Being on City Council isn't just about attending meetings and casting votes. It's about actively representing your community, bringing forward ideas, asking hard questions, and pushing for better solutions. I will be a counselor that engages, who challenges the assumptions, and who works to find practical solutions, even if they're outside the traditional approach. Because the people that I've talked to don't feel like they've been fully heard, and that needs to change. I feel that the primary duty of the city councilor is to represent the people and ensure that the government delivers real, measurable results for them. This means listening to residents, representing their priorities, being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars, and holding programs and policies accountable for results. And a part of that responsibility is judgment. Last year, once it was brought to light, the majority of City Council voted to allow a convicted murderer to serve on the Community Police Review Board. I opposed that. When that decision was made national news, it was brought to Council and to reconsider. Despite my opponent walking out on that vote, the majority ultimately came back and said, that's not okay. Now, I do believe in second chances, and that's exactly why we have public testimony so that anybody can come forward and have their voice heard. But serving on a board that oversees police accountability is a position of public trust, and we need to take that responsibility seriously. Because leadership isn't just about policies, it's about judgments, and that's why the police and the fire unions endorse me. The campaign is focused on 4 clear priorities: safe and clean neighborhoods, accountability on homelessness, and responsible budgeting and support for local businesses and jobs. What I bring is practical, results-driven approach. In my professional life, success is measured not by outcomes, but not intentions. This is why we need more of this at City Hall, because right now, too many decisions are being made without clear accountability for results. At the end of the day, this campaign is about restoring confidence in our city. Confidence that your neighborhood is safe, your businesses can succeed, your tax dollars are being used wisely, and your voice is actually being heard. This race is about a choice, not just between 2 candidates, but 2 different approaches. That's why I am committed to bringing that type of leadership to City Council. Please check out my website, chrisforsalem.com. I'd be honored to earn your support. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Gwyn, you're up.
First, I want to say thank you to the Salem Reporter for hosting us tonight, and thank you to my neighbors in Ward 4 for trusting me to serve as your city council for the last 3.5 years. It's truly been an honor, and I'm very humbled by the opportunity. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Deanna Gwyn. I've lived and worked in Salem for over 40 years. My husband and I raised our daughter here. I built my career here as a real estate broker, helping thousands of families find a place to call home. The city isn't just where I work, it's home, and I care deeply about its future. When I think about my role as a city councilor, it comes down to something very simple. My responsibility is to the people who live here, who work here, and expect their local government to get the basics right. Safe neighborhoods, a community they can afford, and responsible use of their tax dollars. Public safety has been my top priority since day one, and we've made real progress. We brought ambulance service back to Salem with improved response times. We launched the REACH program, pairing first responders with mental health professionals so people in crisis get the right kind of help. Because what we were doing before simply wasn't enough. I'm proud to have earned the support of the Salem Police Employees Union and Salem Professional Firefighters Local 314, the people on the front lines every day. That support means a lot to me because it tells me we are listening to the people doing the work. But I want to be clear, there is much more to do. People still want to feel safe in their neighborhoods, and that continues to be a focus. Housing and affordability are also front and center for me. For over 30 years, I've sat across the table from Salem families trying to make the numbers work. I've seen firsthand how rising costs and limited inventory are impacting people. We need more housing, every segment of the market, and we need it now. I'm grateful to also have the support of the Mid-Valley Association of Realtors and the Oregon Home Builders Association of Marion and Polk Counties. These are my colleagues, frankly, and these are the people building homes, working with families, and they understand the challenges on the ground. Salem needs more housing, more opportunity, and a path forward that actually works. But affordability isn't just about housing, it's also about what we ask of people in the way of taxes and fees. My voting record on this council reflects that, which brings me to the transportation tax measure ballot 120. I do support investing in infrastructure. It matters to the safety and success of this community. But that current proposal doesn't clearly identify specific projects tied to the funding. It creates a large pool of discretionary spending without a clear, accountable plan. I'm not comfortable asking Salem residents to pay more without that level of clarity. Identify the problems first, prioritize the projects, show people exactly what their investment will deliver, then ask for their support. Earlier today, I attended the State of the County address. Commissioner Cameron said something that has stayed with me all day. He said the two most important days of our lives are the days we're born and the day we discover why. I've been thinking about that ever since. I wasn't born in Salem, but I chose Salem. My husband and I chose to raise our daughter here, to build our careers here, to plant ourselves here. And somewhere along the way, this place became the reason. Not a stepping stone, not a chapter, but the whole story. 40 years of watching the city grow and struggle and come back. 40 years of sitting across the table from families who wanted nothing more than a safe place to put down roots, just like we did. That's why I'm standing here tonight. That is why I knocked on doors and asked for your trust 4 years ago. And that's why I'm asking again. I know why. It's Salem, and it's you. And I'm not done showing up for it. I would be honored for your continued support. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Inbody.
Hi, I'm Dave Inbody. and I'm running for Salem City Council in Ward 4. People often ask me, why are you running? Well, my story is pretty simple. One day I'm out walking with my dogs, as I normally do, and we crossed a construction site where they were building townhomes. It seemed like a good idea, until I discovered they aren't putting in sidewalks. Unlike all the other houses in the neighborhood, these particular homes will not have sidewalks. Why is that? I figured I had some confidence that my city commissioner or my city councilor would be looking out for us. Unfortunately, not only did she not vote against it, not only did she not happen to let this happen, let me try again. Unfortunately, not only did she not let this happen, she voted for it. I couldn't believe it. I mean, this is a basic safety issue for the people in Ward 4. Isn't safety a priority that we look for in the people that lead us? That's when I decided to run. I offer you 3 things that my opponent hasn't given you: thoughtful growth, long-term fiscal stability, and engaged leadership. First, thoughtful growth. South Salem is one of the fastest growing areas in the city, but we're only looking at development one project at a time. You know, it's kind of like trying to drive with your reading glasses on. You can see pretty clearly right in front of you, but you have no idea where you're going. There is a better way. When each new development that we look at comes up, we should ask ourselves, will this benefit our economy? Will this keep us safe? Will this enhance our quality of life? Growth can be a positive thing, but we need to grow in a way that doesn't destroy the natural resources that we love and put our families at risk. With a background in community and regional planning, I can guide us through a growth strategy by working with the city staff, business community, and the people of South Salem. We can figure out how all these changes can happen, work together, and build the future that we want. Thoughtful growth is one thing I offer. Long-term fiscal stability is another. Last year, we passed a levy to avoid reducing city services and cutting staff. While I supported the levy, this was a temporary fix. We still have not addressed the underlying problem. Our expenses are growing faster than our revenue, and everybody knows that that's not a path that we want to be on. There is a better way. I have 20 years of local and state government experience, with more than a decade working in government budgeting. The levy bought us 5 years, but we need to use that time. We need to act now. Now is the time for the City Council to initiate extensive and likely difficult conversations with the community to decide what is critically important. It may mean we need to stop doing certain things. It may mean we need to start doing new things. But we can learn from the successes of other cities, and by focusing on measuring clear performance outcomes, we can ensure that we reach our goals. But none of this happens if we don't have engaged leadership. That means listening to the people that you represent, not just a small group of people that agree with you. It also means learning from the people with different perspectives and having a productive conversation with those who disagree with you. How can you represent the people of South Salem if you never speak to most of them? There is a better way. I will listen to the people of South Salem. In fact, I am already listening to the people of South Salem. Over the last several weeks, I've had the pleasure of meeting hundreds of people in Ward 4, residents at their doorstep, and asking them, what are they concerned about? What are their issues? It's not just listening, it's also learning from them and turning what you learn into action. As a city councilor, I will continue this dialogue with you and use your perspective to inform my work. You know, most people just want a government that works. I've spent a career in public service turning good ideas into positive results for people. I want to put that experience to work for you. If you're tired of being heard, if you're tired of not being heard, frustrated by short-sighted decisions, and sick of leaders who simply don't lead, I'm your guy. If you want South Salem to grow in a thoughtful way and you want fiscal stability, and you want a city councilor who values your opinion, I'm your guy. To the people in Ward 4, I offer you my experience, my insight, my energy in the face of the most difficult issues that we face. And never forgetting that I represent you, the people of South Salem. My name is Dave Inbody, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Martinez, it's all yours.
Good evening. My name is Manny Martinez. This is the extent of the notes that I brought. I think it's good to be able to speak from the heart on these issues. So for those of you that don't know me, I am a musician. I'm a small business owner. I'm an educator. That's how I make my living. I'm also a recovering alcoholic with almost 7 years of sobriety, which is really important to my run here. On April 27th, I'll celebrate 7 years. And the thing that really inspired me to run for office is the homelessness emergency that we have here in Salem. The city of Salem has done polling, and it has been determined that 43% of the people of Salem believe that the homelessness emergency is the #1 issue, and 19% of people say that public safety is the top issue. So you're talking over 60% of people say that the homelessness emergency and public safety are the top issues, and there's obviously a lot of overlap between those two issues. I am running in order to finally be able to help to solve the homelessness emergency. I really believe that we can do that if we're willing to take bold action. So this morning, I released what I'm calling my 8-step plan for this issue. And obviously 5 minutes is not enough time to address this. It's such a huge issue. I could talk about it for hours. And a lot of my friends are subjected to exactly that because I rant about this stuff all the time. But I feel very passionately about this. And here's basically the 8 points that I shared with everyone early this morning. Number 1, we need to make this priority #1 in city council. There's been too many times where I've gone to city council and they barely even talk about this issue. I've seen meetings where they barely even touch it, sometimes for months at a time. And it's supposed to be the #1 priority. If I was on city council, I would not let one meeting go by where I don't make this a massive issue. I want this to be talked about at every single city council meeting moving forward. Number 2, we need to make shelter our top priority. There's a math problem, as a lot of people say. We have, the pit count says something between 2,100 to 2,500 homeless people. Jimmy Jones from the Community Action Agency said the number is probably closer to 5,000. And we have something like 1,200 shelter beds. We've got a math problem. We need more shelter beds. So I'm proposing that we look through the real estate holdings of the city of Salem, and we look for anything that could be repurposed into a shelter space. Any building that we're not using, any land that we're not using, we can either build new shelters or repurpose existing structures into shelters. And also, when we're looking at that real estate, I want to look for anything that we're not using, anything that we don't have plans for, and put it up for sale, liquidate it. Let's raise some cash for this. I call it the 2027 Salem yard sale, okay? We need to raise some cash. We can sell off the stuff that we're not using, put all that money in the general fund and use it to help to solve the homelessness issue. Additionally, we're going to need managed camping sites. What we have going on in Wallace Marine Park is an absolute disaster. People have died in there. There's sex trafficking happening in there. It's an absolute disgrace. There's people suffering in there when we need to get them out. I believe that we should have 8 managed camping sites, 1 per ward. That's the only fair way to do this. I talked to DJ Vincent from Church at the Park. He said that 75 to 100 is probably the maximum that you can manage at any given time. So we could have 8 different sites, up to 100 people in each one of those sites. Ideally, we could get the Clean Salem team and the Homeless Services team to be able to spend most of their time managing those sites instead of running around town, from one place to another, just responding to calls. It would be such a better use of their time, okay? And then once we have these places in place, the managed camping sites and the shelters, we need to enforce the camping ban. We cannot have a thriving city if we just allow unmanaged camping to happen all over our city. We all see the results of that, and it's unacceptable. Okay, there is going to have to be a law enforcement element of this problem. And I can speak to you from experience as a recovering addict that I recognize that not everyone out on the street is a drug addict. I've never said that. I understand that you've got the single mom escaping her abuser, the elderly grandma that has nowhere else to go, the guy that lost his job or had some kind of terrible health circumstance that landed him on the street. I understand, but there also is an element of drug and alcohol addiction that's going to have to be addressed, and we are going to have to hold those individuals accountable so we can help them. The number one thing I learned in my recovery is accountability. You cannot have recovery without accountability, and we have to be willing to speak the difficult truth of this issue if we are going to help to save these people's lives. Okay, empty lectures about kindness and compassion are not enough. We've got to get real about this issue. And the last thing, number 8 on my list, is honest conversation, which I'm trying to start now. This is not a left versus right issue. I can tell you I've got support from all sides of the political spectrum. We're in agreement on this. We can solve this problem. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Nishioka, your turn.
Wow, those lights are bright. I hope you can see me. Well, it's been very interesting listening to everyone. Good evening, and thank you all for coming. I am Linda Nishioka, and I am proud to serve as Ward 2 Councilor and Council President. I would like to share a little bit about me, and it might explain why I am serving. My parents were very young when they married, and I was only a few months old when they divorced. My mother died when I was 3, and I vividly remember standing outside a hospital window looking in at a woman that I did not know, and she was waving to me. That was my mom, and I still grieve that I never had the chance to get to know her. When my father was drafted into the military, my grandmother was my primary caregiver, and she taught me so many fundamentals of life. She taught me strength, integrity, to be honest, and to work very hard, and to do the right thing. She was a member of the League of Women Voters, and she and I would go out and sit at a table, and she would encourage people to register to vote. This is where I learned community service. My grandparents attended many political meetings, and they would bring me with them. When I was about 5, I was at a meeting. I was the only child, and when they were finished talking, I got brave, and I went up on that stage, and I got to the microphone, and I said, "I think you are all old and talk too much." So here I am, talking too much. I worked my way through picking berries and beans in the fields to managing a complex surgical practice. I was on my own at 18 and put myself through college. It took me 10 years to earn my degree, and during that time, I experienced housing insecurity. I had to choose between tuition and rent. For a full year, I was unhoused. Those experiences have shaped my values. During my first term, I have focused on delivering results for my ward and the community. This is a team sport. The counselors have to work together to get anything done. And we worked very hard on getting the livability levy passed so that we could have our parks maintained, our library restored hours, and Center 50 plus. And this did give us breathing room to try to look at our budget for the next few years to figure out ways that we could manage still providing these services and still making sure that we had full public safety, police, fire, and the 911 call center. We appreciate the voters voting to approve that levy, and we are working hard, and we will soon be in our budget cycle. I'm going to say that even though the city has a lot still left to do to help our unhoused, it's never been the city's financial responsibility. We have to be with our county and state partners, along with our nonprofit organizations, to continue the work and build more shelters and more services so that we can get people to the care they need. I have listened to the community, and I have worked very hard for them. I have heard their concerns about traffic, transportation, flooding, emergency preparedness, parks, sidewalks, and more. And I have managed to provide solutions in partnership with the city and council. But the work is not finished. We must continue addressing the homelessness with a balanced approach and proven results. We need to work collaboratively with our partners, the county, the state, and our nonprofits to be able to get that work done, while we, the city, maintain public safety and livability. I am fully committed to do this work. I do listen, I seek solutions, and I deliver results, and I know that you know that. I hope that this work, I have earned your trust. With this work, I've earned your trust, support, and vote. I hope you will continue me serving as your Ward 2 counselor. Thank you.
Remember the House rules, applause but no jeering. Ms. Vang, you're up.
Thank you to the Salem Reporter for hosting this forum for the candidates and letting us speak to our constituents and voters. I know everybody here has busy lives, and I appreciate our audience members for making the time this evening to spend it with us. And as Councilor Nishioka said, talk for a very long time. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight. For those of you that I have not yet met, my name is Vang. I am the current counselor for Ward 6. I moved to Salem to attend Willamette University. I can't see the audience, but any Bearcats out there? Let's go. And I fell in love with Salem, and I have been here ever since. And I am sitting on council, and I bring an array of life experience that council truly needs in order to make a good policy that reflects our entire community. I am the only city councilor to be a renter, the first in as long as I can remember. I am also the daughter of refugee parents. I am a young person. I am also a person of color, and I am a woman. All of these experiences bring a unique perspective to council that is needed as we move forward with making policy. Before I joined council, I have been actively involved in my neighborhood association. And I went to my neighborhood association because I live on a busy street, and I saw school children walking to and from school every day while traffic and cars are passing by real fast. I know that was a concern for me, and I sure know that that is a concern that the rest of Ward 6 shares with me. And as counselor, I have been able to make strides in addressing traffic concerns for Ward 6. I have been able to install leading pedestrian intervals along Lancaster, not only in Ward 6, but also in Ward 5, in Ward 2, and Ward 3, all along the Lancaster corridor. And I have the proud accomplishment to restart counselor attendance at our neighborhood associations in Ward 6. For a while, counselors did not attend our neighborhood associations. And I know that they really value seeing their counselor present at these meetings. And so I'm proud to have restarted that tradition. And finally, I have been proudly able to vote yes on expanding our clean team and our homeless service team from 4 days to 7 days a week, and expanding it into Northeast Salem, into Ward 6, where the need is the most great. And so I look forward to what I can do for the next 4 years as continuing to be your counselor. Historically, Ward 6 has not received its fair share of resources or investments. My role as counselor is to listen and advocate for those needs and concerns, especially when it comes to affordability, traffic concerns, and livability issues. I also share the responsibility with the rest of council to set thoughtful policies for a growing Salem. And I know that I have the knowledge and experience to address complex issues, like our trash. Where is that gonna go now? And Ward 6 deserves an advocate with the experience and the knowledge to continue advocating and pushing policy that makes Ward 6 a beautiful place to live and Salem a wonderful place to continue being here. And I believe that I am that advocate, and my record reflects that. So, in conclusion, as Shakespeare wrote, brevity is the wit of soul. So thank you, and I look forward to an engaging forum.
All right, Ms. Varney, it's all yours.
Let's see here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you to Salem Reporter for providing this opportunity. I'm Micki Varney, and I'm a retired salmon biologist, and I'm honored to serve Ward 8, which is in West Salem. I believe experience matters. In 1992, when I started working for Washington Fish and Wildlife, only 300 fall Chinook salmon returned and crossed all 4 of the Snake River dams in southeast Washington. In 2010, when I left the small research team to move to Oregon, 41,000 Chinook returned to that river. So what made the difference? Trial projects, collection and analyzing data, and moving forward with initiatives that work. Similar to what we're doing in Salem with our pilot projects, the HST, the clean teams, and REACH. As city councilors, we set policy, rules, and procedures to protect our community. When I was a city councilor in Washington, I remember the horror I felt when I heard that a toddler had ingested a cigarette butt he picked up in the city park play areas, and he'd gone to the emergency room. My first ordinance was to create a 25-foot no smoking zone around the playground area. I learned even small actions can make huge impacts to the well-being of my community. As city councilors, we also maintain utility and transportation infrastructure and protect property. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina flooded New Orleans. The Corps of Engineers was blamed for the levee failures. In response, the Corps adopted wide-sweeping regulations like vegetation removal to facilitate inspection of levees. It impacted my small town where I was councilor because we had a river and levees, and ESA protected fish. Removal of all vegetation would increase water temperatures and reduce the shade cover for listed fish. However, if cities don't follow federal regulations for maintaining levees, they could lose their FEMA assistance if a flood were to occur. We were caught between conflicting federal mandates: protect fish or protect people. I convened and led a team of elected officials, Corps officers to come up with a solution. We negotiated a variance to the regulations, the first of its kind, and it ended up becoming a model for other cities facing the same predicament. 13 years ago, I started attending West Salem Neighborhood Association meetings. I secured 3 city grants for improvements to West Salem parks, and I led our neighborhood association through the rocky road during and through COVID. I served and chaired Salem Parks and Rec Advisory Board and was elected to City Council in 2022. I'm proud of what our city has accomplished, like balancing our budget with support from you for the local option levy to keep our libraries and parks open, and implementing projects to increase sheltering for the unhoused, provide more affordable housing. In 2022, I was successful in getting an amendment added to our Salem zoning plan that stated the city would address traffic congestion in West Salem when they develop the Transportation System Master Plan. That starts this summer. In West Salem, I reduced speed limits on Edgewater Street and Orchard Heights, added pedestrian crossings to the reconstructed 2nd Avenue, and this summer we will have a protected pedestrian crossing across Orchard Heights Road to get to Orchard Heights Park. I insisted on changes to the Titan Hill development to save trees, increase green stormwater infrastructure, and modify local roads to better handle increased traffic. I've insisted on meetings being public, and I will continue to build on the city's progress with the following priorities. I will continue to support the homeless service team, the Clean Salem team, REACH, and our local partners as we work to help people move from our streets and parks into stable employment and into housing they can afford. West Salem's population continues to outgrow its transportation infrastructure. I'll keep pushing for responsible growth, more local services and transit options, and we need regional solutions for another river crossing. Lastly, I will continue to advocate for government accountability and transparency. I'll keep demanding open meetings, high ethical standards, and real results for your tax dollars. I believe my career and leadership skills and demonstrated years of service to my West Salem community separate me from my opponent. I believe experience matters. I'm Micki Varney, and I ask for your vote in the May election. Thank you.
Ms. Vega?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the Salem Reporter as well for inviting us, and thank you to all the candidates that are here. My name is Betsy Vega, and I'm proud to call Salem my home. As a single mom, a small business owner, and the daughter of Argentine and Colombian parents who came to this country chasing the American dream. They love this country so much, they named me Betsy after Betsy Ross. I grew up in a family that worked hard but still knew what it was like to worry about whether rent would get paid. Even today, as a business owner, I understand the stress of not knowing if next month's bills are going to be penciled out. But I've also seen how a strong community can carry people through. Another important issue on the ballot is on Measure 120, which I will be voting no on because Salem families do not need more taxes. I worked and volunteered at every job that I could find and put myself through community college and the university, eventually earning my master's in business administration as the first in my family to do so. That journey isn't unique. It's the story of so many Salem families as well, doing everything right and still feeling squeezed. Today, I wear many hats. I own Rose City Balloons, bringing joy and celebration to events across Salem and across the world, and Latino Enterprises, which I coach and support other small business owners with bookkeeping and payroll so they can also create local jobs helping with the economy. I've had the chance to serve as an adjunct faculty member for Chemeketa Community College, teaching practical businesses, finance, and investing in the next generation of entrepreneurs. And beyond my businesses, my heart is rooted in the service to this community. I serve on the Marion County Sheriff's Advisory Board, helping law enforcement better protect and support our neighbors, and on the Salem Tourism Board, promoting the community we love. I also voted for this renovation at this Elsinore Theater. I also volunteer as a community chaplain that partners with community resources and help lead volunteers at Marion Polk Food Share, walking families through some of their most hardest times. Whether I am processing payroll late at night, mentoring entrepreneurs on Main Street, or comforting families facing hardship, at church or at the future, I see same things. Families are generous, resilient, and tired of feeling ignored by City Hall. I hear daily about raising taxes that keep squeezing working families, and homelessness crisis that clogs our sidewalks and business doorways, and neighbors who no longer feel safe walking in their own communities. In fact, this morning, one of our neighbors was saying that she has these homeless people in her apartments that the kids can't even go out and play. So people are losing faith in city government and can actually solve problems. What's been missing on the City Council is a courage to tell the hard truth and pursue real solutions instead of Band-Aids. As a former child protective service worker, I've seen firsthand what addiction does to families. And this is not compassionate to let people waste away in addiction on our sidewalks or keep cycling violent offenders back into the same neighborhoods they're terrorizing. That's why I'm running for City Council, to bring moral clarity and stand up for families and to insist on real transformation. We need a cultural shift inside our city government, one that focuses on proven treatment and support for our homeless neighbors that can regain self-sufficiency and dignity and make public safety non-negotiable. As a city councilor, I will bring my primary duties as serving the people of Ward 6, listening carefully as I have been walking on door knocking and also businesses and speaking to them, and as they mention what they would like the changes, asking these tough questions about how your tax dollars are spent, and setting policies on public safety, land use, basic services that actually improve the daily use of life. My job is to be your voice for the City Hall and to assist that our city's decisions reflect our priorities, not special interests. I mean, your priorities. My biggest motivation in this work is my faith, which reminds me that every person has dignity and that our city is called to something better than what we can see today. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I believe with courage and partnership, we can get Salem unstuck and restore hope that this can be a livable city for families again. Thank you all for your support, your prayers, and your belief in a better future for Ward 6 and all of Salem. Let's do this work together and vote for Betsy as your city councilor, Ward 6, on May 19th. Thank you.
Thank you all for those really thoughtful presentations. Now we're going to move into a question period. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question per ward. They were provided the questions ahead of time so we could get the most valuable information for you in the coming 2 minutes. So we're going to start with Ward 2. In each ward, the incumbent will speak first and then the challenger. So in Ward 2, Linda, your 2 minutes. I didn't follow my own script. I guess you'd like to know what the question is. Roll that tape back, would you please? Okay, so the question for Ward 2. What do you propose to further address unsheltered homelessness in downtown Salem?
Thank you, and it's smart to have that question before we begin. Homelessness is not a single problem, nor does it have a single solution. No one wants to see people sleeping on the streets or living in our parks. No one wants to see people in unsafe conditions. We also have to realize that it is not against the law to be poor, to be unhoused, or to need help. I fear that we're going to see more falling into homelessness as we have seen the federal dollars decline. We have begun the program, the pilot program, Safe, Clean, and Healthy Salem, and we have added the REACH team, the Mobile Crisis Unit, and we are making real progress just within the last few months. But we are not done. What we need to see, again, as I said earlier, we need our nonprofits, our county, and our state to help us provide the shelter beds and the treatment centers that people need. I am proposing that we also consider a downtown ambassador program. This is a proven model across the country. Its visible, unarmed presence provides support for businesses, visitors, and improve cleanliness and safety. It complements the teams that we already have working. I want to see prevention for those that are on the edge of falling into homelessness, for seniors and families. As Chief Womack has said, we cannot criminalize our way out of homelessness, and we do need balance, accountability, but with long-term solutions. Thank you.
Okay, Manny, same question.
Thank you. I have to take issue with some of that answer, and with all due respect to Councilor Nishioka and everyone on the City Council. I mean, it's a volunteer position. I know everyone's trying their best, and it's a thankless job most of the time. I really appreciate and respect the people that run for City Council. It's really tough. But when I hear a balanced approach with proven results, what I hear is we're going to do more of the same. We're going to keep trimming around the edges. And the proven results, well, I think that the results are unacceptable. There's still thousands of homeless people. I think so upwards of like 1,000 that are unsheltered. And a statement like it's not against the law to be poor. I mean, this is what I'm talking about when it comes to the honest conversation. I've never heard anyone say that it should be against the law to be poor. What people are saying is that the actions that are taken, especially from the people that are suffering from addiction, is unacceptable behavior, okay? We're not talking about the single mom escaping from her abuser. We're not talking about the elderly grandma that has nowhere else to go. We're not talking about the guy who is down on his luck and lost his job or whatever else. And pretty much everyone I talk to, conservatives, liberals, whoever it is, we all agree that housing first works for a lot of these people, and we're in favor of these kind of programs. And even the most hardcore conservatives are like, yeah, I want my tax dollars to go to this kind of stuff as long as it's getting results. So no one is saying that it's against the law to be poor. That's just like, that's a conversation stopper. We have to stop with that kind of language, and this is what I'm talking about. When you speak the truth on this stuff, you just get shut down. We need to make this our number one priority, and I'm almost out of time here, but I would just say go to mannyforsalem.com. I have an 8-step plan. It's doable. I've talked to so many of the city leaders and law enforcement, the firefighters, county commissioners. We can do this. Priorities: shelter, managed camping sites, the Salem yard sale, business partnerships, the camping ban, law enforcement, honest conversation. We're not going to be able to solve this problem unless we speak honestly about this conversation. Thank you.
Okay, again, please be respectful of the speakers. They're giving their time here tonight to give you their best information. All right, let's turn to Ward 4. The question for Ward 4 candidates: what do you propose to reduce city government barriers to housing development in South Salem? And Deanna, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Salem needs more housing. And this isn't just a policy issue, it's personal. It affects real families, teachers, nurses, the people who work at grocery stores and serve our community every day. They can't afford to live here. And part of that is that we've made it so hard and so expensive to build. Numbers don't lie. According to the National Association of Realtors Housing Shortage Tracker, Salem is behind on new permits. Every month of unnecessary delay, every unclear requirement, that cost doesn't disappear. It gets passed on to the people who can afford it the least. I've spent 34 years in real estate, and I've watched this play out firsthand. So here's what I would push for. First, faster, more predictable timelines. Every month a project sits in review as another month a family can't find a place to live, Second, if a project meets the code, it gets approved. Full stop. When the process is unpredictable, developers build in a risk cushion, and that cost shows up in the price, either rent or the price of the property. Third, look honestly at requirements that don't improve livability. If we're spending money on process rather than outcomes, that's money that could go towards amenities that actually serve the people who live there. Fourth, stay ahead of infrastructure. South Salem has real capacity constraints. The city needs to be proactive, not let infrastructure gaps become another reason to slow things down. I've seen this from the inside as a broker and as a council member. The goal isn't lower standards, it's smarter process that gets good housing built for the people who need it. And I also want to say to something my opponent said earlier, okay, never mind, my time.
All right, Dave, your turn.
Before we start talking about action, we need to review what we know. Historically, patterns show that certain types of housing are concentrated in certain parts of the city. We updated the comprehensive plan in 2022 by rezoning and redesigning in an effort to try and provide a little more equity in terms of how we distribute our housing across this city. And a lot of those changes happened in South Salem for good reasons. In South Salem, it was much more difficult to build multifamily homes. Those changes helped to move that forward. And in South Salem, we know the things that are working, the things that are good. Great access to schools, jobs, transportation, parks, services, but what isn't working? Very difficult access to affordable housing. So we can't answer the question of solving the housing issues in South Salem without addressing the affordable housing issues. I agree with some of the things that my opponent said, but let's make it specific to South Salem. Yes, we should make improvements in terms of the permitting process, but let's create incentives to encourage developers to build affordable housing. And let's make changes to the zoning code, but let's do it in a way that we're creating more flexibility. So if you're creating the housing that we really need, then we're going to be more flexible. The other part of this is that there's the great diversity that exists with the different services that are needed when you start building new houses. South Salem is primarily built with the assumption that everybody has a car. Now think about this for a minute. In South Salem, if you took away people's cars, what could they get to in 15 minutes? By walking or by bike? And could they do it safely? These are the questions that I think we need to answer as we change and as we evolve what we're building in South Salem. A study... Oh, sorry. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to Ward 6. The question for our candidates in that ward: what action would you propose the city take to bring down rents for Salem families living in private properties? Mike, we'll start with you.
Thank you for the question. This hits pretty close to home as I am a renter myself. And so that is always at the top of my mind every month, and it is an issue that I know Ward 6 residents face every day. But before we dive into what are the solutions, I think we need to set the stage for what the city can do and what ideas and policies we can bring forward. So to kind of set the stage, the state plays a really big role in this area of law, or in this area, I should say, and it sets the rent prices. And so the state has a bulk of that control. But that does not mean that the city is going to play a passive role. If anything, we can play a more proactive role in seeking and being more creative of how do we decrease rent and keep families in their home. So to the solution. it's a two-part answer, two-part solution. The first, the city is already doing, and something that council is implementing, which is following through with our Salem housing production. This is a plan, an outline that helps the city build an array of housing options across all income levels. And this includes single-family homes, this includes townhomes, this includes cottage clusters, this includes apartment complexes. And this is a strategy that is very helpful and is something that Ward 6 needs because we have such an array of residents who live within the ward. And so to have and provide these housing options is a benefit. It gives people the ability to live where they want to live. The second part of the solution, and the actions I propose that the city can take, is to actually keep families in their homes. And in February, I brought a motion that directly addresses this very issue about rent. And I brought the motion to have the city explore what rental policies, rental protections can the city implement or explore to see how we can keep families in their homes. And that is a counselor who is listening to their residents, listening to their constituents, and putting action onto the table. Thank you very much.
Okay, Betsy?
So Oregon is already one of the most renter-regulated states in the country, but that hasn't made housing affordable. We already have rent control, and rents in Salem have still gone up. So doing more of the same is not going to fix this. Across the political spectrum, housing experts say the same thing. Rent control shrinks supply and end up hurting the very people we're supposed to help. It might feel good in short term, but it does not create more affordable apartments for families. And it actually drives up prices elsewhere. We are not going to make rentals cheaper by increasing the costs and risks of providing them. So piling on new mandates for the landlords is a wrong direction. My answer is more homes, no more caps. I'd propose an initiative to fast-track permits, waive fees for middle housing and workforce housing, and zone more land for apartments and duplexes so the private market can build thousands of new units in Ward 6 and across the city. When you increase supply, you create real competition, and that's what brings rents down for everyone. And I say not this as a policy wonk, but as a single person who just recently spent months trying to find a decent, affordable apartment here. Imagine a family with kids. Our families need action on building real units they can actually live in, not slogans that they already failed to deliver. Thank you.
All right, on to Ward 8. The question for the candidates: with public safety a top concern, what revenue increase or budget shift do you propose to maintain the current staffing at the Salem Police Department? And Micki, we'll start with you.
Boy, these lights. Yeah, thank you. Well, I wanted to mention, yes, our police department is extremely important. My son is a police officer, not here, but up by Spokane, Washington. So this is near and dear to my heart. We need to fund our police department because our officers are overworked. They're working overtime, they're stressed, they're having to make split-minute decisions, and this is crucially important that it's funded. In fact, we need to increase the numbers of police officers we have for some of our other community programs. Public safety takes up more, I think it's about 60% of our general fund, and the costs keep going up. Insurance is 18% increased. PERS has gone up, so the costs keep going up. So how are we going to pay for them? What I believe we need to do is a combination of revenue sources. Number one is payment in lieu of taxes from the legislature. For our state buildings that are not paying any property taxes, and that burden is falling on the rest of us. We need to keep working on that, and I've seen progress in the legislature, and we're going to keep advocating for that. Another thing is restructuring the city operations fee. That's the little fee that's on the utility bill. I've gotten a lot of questions about that recently from constituents. Councilor Tigan, okay. Anyway, we brought a motion forward to restructure it. It's important to restructure it because it needs to be more fair for residents and property owners. Assistant living, schools, et cetera, who get lots of the emergency calls, they use a disproportionate amount of the services. And so it's really important that we restructure it so the folks that are using the services more are paying for those services. And lastly, parking fund. Thank you.
All right, Chris?
Bringing it home here. So, public safety is the city's top responsibility, and police are delivering strong results. Crime reported is down, clearance rates are high, and they've made real progress despite being understaffed. So the question is not whether we support the police, we absolutely do. The question is how we sustain the staffing responsibly. First, we need to finish the work the city has already started. Today, a significant portion of the police time is spent on homelessness, mental health, and repeat crisis calls. That's why the program like the Homeless Services Team, HST, was created to move those responsibilities to the right type of response. That frees up sworn officers to focus on core public safety. We need to fully implement that and expand that model across the rest of the city to free up even more time. Time is money, as they say. Second, we should continue to look at smarter deployment and technology. In West Salem, businesses are dealing with theft that's underreported. A possible partnership even with Polk County could potentially improve coverage without duplicating cost. And I applaud the chief for getting into the weeds of creating ways to use overtime and unfilled vacancies that stretch the budget for a bit. Third, we need to maintain accountability. Any funding for public safety should be tied to measurable outcomes such as response times, crime trends, community impact, so that taxpayers know exactly what they're getting. I boil it down to this. By reducing homelessness-related issues and keeping after the state to contribute their fair share for the city that they occupy, essentially shorting the city on tax revenue, the budget would allow better policing, staffing, as well as other areas that are getting pinched. Thanks.
Thank you, all of you. You know, running for public office in a local community is not an easy task. So I want to thank our panelists and our candidates this evening for the thoughtful responses, and I'd like us all to give them a thank you for being here tonight. And with that, you are excused. So as we prepare for the second part of our program, as the panelists come up, our reporters and our mayoral candidate. One thing I want to share with you is that we're looking for 10 volunteers from our audience tonight who can gather with our reporting team for coffee on Thursday morning so we can hear your assessment of what you heard from candidates tonight. If you're interested in being one of those people, I ask you to send an email to rachel@salemreporter.com. Let us know what ward you're in and why you would find this a useful exercise. We really do want to hear your voices about what you hear tonight. And so as we're getting the panel up here, where are they? Do we have our candidate coming up? You get your microphone? Yeah. All right. Great. So, Salem got its first mayor in 1857 or 1860, depending on how technical you want to be. Since that time, 58 people have held the title of mayor. If you don't know, the mayor in Salem is nonpartisan, has the same vote on the city council as the other councilors, is really the face of city government, and does set the council agenda. In Salem this year on the ballot, we have 2 candidates seeking the job of mayor. One showed up tonight. The incumbent, Julie Hoy, declined to participate despite our repeated invitations. She said she did not feel that our last debate format was fair to her. I asked her what she would be doing instead tonight, and she said she would be out going door to door campaigning. Vanessa Nordyke is here tonight. Vanessa is a Salem City Councilor. She's the Executive Director of CASA of Marion County, and you can find more biographical details on her website. Tonight, Senior Reporter Abby McDonald and Reporter Joe Cease will be questioning Vanessa on a range of issues. She does not know the questions. She did not get any advance notice. I hope you will find the conversation informative, and I hope you'll pay close attention. Abby and Joe, it's all yours.
Julie Hoy after 1 term. Why should they?
I'm sorry I didn't catch that last part. Can you say that again?
Why should they?
Why indeed, Joe, why indeed? Well, first of all, thank you, everyone. And I think you have started off with the most important question. So I will refer you to several things: experience, education, and ethics. But let's start with ethics. There's a headline out there that your publication wrote, quote, "Mayor Julie Hoy lied to set in motion former city manager's resignation," end quote. That is our mayor. That was the finding of an independent ethics investigation conducted by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. That was not our finding. That was not a rumor. That was founded by a statewide commission. So that alone calls into question her fitness for office. And she has never, ever accepted responsibility for that, for dragging all of us into that. And may I remind folks, she did that within her first month of taking office. And when she did so, she jeopardized the livability levy. There were 51 full-time employment positions at stake. If that levy failed, those jobs would all be lost, and public safety cuts would come next. She took a gamble with city jobs on the line. That is our mayor. Next, let's talk about fiscal responsibility and donors. In 2024, when she was a councilor, Mayor Hoy, then Councilor Hoy, voted on a project that a wealthy out-of-town donor had given to her in terms of donations to her campaign. That was in the newspaper. You can find that article to this day, and it violated the city charter. And you don't need to read the city charter to know that if a big donor gives you a big fat check, that you can't vote on that person's project when it comes before you. That's just common sense. You don't need to take an ethics training to know that. But she did take ethics training, and she did it anyway. So when I asked her earlier this year at the chamber debate, and I asked her, Mayor Hoy, if one of your donors' projects comes back to council, are you going to vote yes on it? And I thought for sure, surely she's learned her lesson. Surely she knows by now that you can't do that. And you know what she said? She said yes. She'd do it again. That's what you need to know, folks. She'd do it again. And guess what? she continues to receive donations hand over fist from those same wealthy out-of-town donors who are more interested in profiting off the people of Salem than even living in Salem. Thank you.
Can you talk about it? Oh.
I could go on, but we have more to cover.
Can you talk about a specific vote or policy issue where you differed from Julie Hoy?
Well, I remember, I think it was 2023, she refused to vote for the city budget, and I, of course, voted for it. When you refuse to fund city government, you refuse to fund the things you claim to support: public safety, police department, fire department. Our city budget encompasses all those things, and she voted against it. When I think about how she looks at the people of Salem, I see a lack of empathy. I see that the way that our mayor talks about our unsheltered community is this, as if there is mud on the bottom of her shoe. That is not okay. The mayor of Salem should give hope to our people. The mayor of Salem should be looking at the city of Salem like the shining city on the hill. This is the capital of Oregon. We should act like it.
So, the next question's from the audience, and I'm going to read it now. I've heard Latino community members testify to City Council that they feel ignored and shut out of city decisions. If you were elected mayor, will you engage with immigrants and Latinos who live there, here? If so, how?
I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. Can you repeat that question? I'm so sorry, I'm deaf in one ear.
Absolutely. I have heard Latino community members testify to City Council that they feel ignored and shut out of city decisions. If you were elected mayor, will you engage with immigrants and Latinos who live here? If so, how?
Claro que sí. Yo hablo español. Yo sé, en este momento necesitamos una alcaldesa para todos, sin excepciones. Absolutely. We need a mayor for all residents of Salem, no exceptions. Now, you can tell by my voting record, this is one of the other ways in which we differ. When we had Latino school children coming to council telling us that they were afraid that when they would get home from school that their parents wouldn't be here, that was not the time to turn the back on our own residents. The mayor should be the city's protector. The mayor should uplift the human rights and the fundamental dignity and respect for all residents of Salem. I have been a leader on this issue. It was I who brought the motion to declare a state of emergency in our city to recognize the dangers that our own residents brought to our attention. We were told we don't feel safe, we need to act, and I did. It was my idea for us to have a bilingual Know Your Rights training provided by our Human Rights Commission. It was my idea to have the Social Services Fund, one that the mayor only most reluctantly agreed to support. And that Social Services Fund helps people who are impacted by immigration authorities, as well as helping other vulnerable residents. The city has always had a role to play in working with our most vulnerable residents, and that is not new, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Look at the history of the Salem Housing Authority, the history of Center 50+, the history of all the literacy services we provide in Spanish and English at the Salem Public Library. These things are not new, they're just new to some people.
Salem is likely to face budget challenges in the next few years. What would you prioritize funding as mayor?
That is such a great question. So first of all, I look at how we are currently funding our budget. And I have been on our budget committee since 2017, so I'm no stranger to how we have traditionally prioritized our services. So I'm not suggesting any dramatic rewrite for how we fund government now. I know that we predominantly fund public safety. The notion that we don't fund public safety first is based on someone who hasn't been paying attention. We have always prioritized public safety funding. But now there's an important twist, folks. You know it if you have been watching me since I joined council in 2019, that we needed a mobile crisis team to complete that public safety spectrum. One that responds to mental illness calls, one that responds to addiction calls, ones that treat our unsheltered population with dignity and connects them to services immediately. So when we talk about what public safety really means, it means not just police and fire. It also means our reach team, something that I have been pushing for since day one, since I think week one on council back in 2019. But as you know, there are plenty of other things that we must continue to support. We must continue to support our library, full stop. We must continue our Salem Housing Authority. We house approximately 9,000 people through Salem Housing Authority. The staff there, thank you, the staff deserve a round of applause. I'm not the one doing the work. Thank you. The city staff are the ones who ensure that persons with disabilities, low-income families and children and seniors and military veterans and domestic violence survivors have a potential place to go. And we need to continue supporting those things. So if you want to really end homelessness, not just sweep people from one place to another, you have to invest more in affordable housing.
So beyond the property tax levy that's in place now, do you believe Salem will need additional taxes or fees to continue funding city services at the current level?
According to our chief financial officer, yes. So as of right now, we are in the black, but we are already looking at our forecasting down the road. And so in the coming years, the city council is going to need to have an important conversation, a public conversation, no backroom dealing, with the members of the public about how we fund city services. The thing about a levy is that it's like a 5-year audition. Over those 5 years, the residents of Salem will get to assess whether their tax property dollars have been well spent. That's why I like levies, because they invest the power in the people. The voters decide, not the council. You decide whether you're ready to invest or reinvest in our community. So what those long-term financial solutions look like will need to be a team decision based on careful thought and planning by our chief financial officer, all of our department heads, city managers, business leaders, community stakeholders, members of the public, in Spanish, in English, and we need to make language accessibility true for all the people who call Salem home. That is how we reach decisions on how to fund our government.
So without new funding, what services would you cut first?
Well, that's pretty brutal. So I always look at where can we do savings through vacant positions. So nobody likes having to work 2 jobs. I am a former government worker. I used to be at the Oregon Department of Justice for about 15 years. And so I've been through layoffs. I've been through hiring freezes. I've been through cost of living adjustment freezes. I've been through it all. And it is not sustainable. But the way that you start is by looking at what vacancies you can simply not fill.
And this is a subject that came up earlier. You changed your mind about appointing a convicted murderer to the city's police review board last December. It appeared that decision was made based on political pressure from the city's police and fire unions rather than any new information. Can you explain why you changed your mind?
Absolutely. First of all, it was based on new information. When I made that decision, I didn't know the nature of the victim or the circumstances. And all that information got blasted on the internet over the holidays. It's also fair to point out that I've never gotten the police employees union before and their endorsement before, so that was not the reason for me changing my vote. But what I did hear is from my own residents. And to me, if you're going to lead, you need to admit, you need to look people in the eye and tell them when you've made a mistake. And that's exactly what I did at that meeting. I made a mistake. But the good news is that if you want to lead, you shouldn't only recognize when you make a mistake, you should take swift action to correct it. And so I actually worked behind the scenes with police, with fire, and with the city manager to look at how we can make changes to our vetting practices. It was well established that we didn't have an adequate vetting process. That's how someone got on the board in the first place, with no criminal background check being done. But I worked behind the scenes to create those background check requirements with Councilor Nishioka. I know that she brought that motion, but this is how you, number one, admit when you make a mistake. You, number two, fix it so that it never happens again. We have fixed it, and that gentleman is off that board. And he still serves on the Transportation Board, if I'm not mistaken, with the full support of all members of council. So thank you.
This is another audience question. To what extent do we need accountability when it comes to helping the homeless? How do we make sure we aren't arresting people for having mental health issues or drug addiction while trying to clean things up?
That is such a great question. And that is why I proposed the REACH team from my first days on being on city council. You've heard it from our police chief himself. You can't arrest your way out of homelessness. When we interviewed Chief Trevor Womack, who unfortunately is now retiring, I remember when I was interviewing Chief Womack for this position, I asked him how he felt about a REACH team type concept. And he was supportive on the condition that you don't cut the police budget to fund that. Something, by the way, I've never been in favor of. We need both. We obviously need both police and a REACH team. So when you have a REACH team, which again, that stands for the Rapid Engagement, Assessment, and Community Health Team, in case you know what the acronym means, that includes a paramedic, an EMT, and a qualified mental health associate. This, by the way, is a great example of partnership with Marion County because they are providing the mental health component to it. Now that they are tied into the 911 system, finally, after years of advocacy, we know that our 911 dispatchers are trained to send the correct person to the right call. And so by having this, finally, a part of our public safety spectrum, we're going to have a better alignment between what people need and who we are sending to those roles. And by the way, there's another bonus here. By sending the REACH team, we are freeing up our firefighters and our police officers for the higher acuity calls that are better suited to their skill set. So we need to fully invest in that REACH team because remember, all we've done is approve a 6-month pilot project. So I look forward to having more robust budget conversations on how to make this a permanent fixture of our way of life here.
Continuing on the topic of homelessness, what, if any, city homeless services would you pursue funding to expand or add?
So I've heard a lot of talk about shelter, but remember, shelter is an extremely expensive form of housing. Shelter requires round-the-clock security and staffing. It requires a lot of things being provided for folks, but shelter isn't a permanent home. So if you really want to end homelessness, and I mean end it, you have to add more affordable housing. Take it from someone who has volunteered at 3 different homeless shelters. I've talked to homeless individuals at Wallace Marine Park, Cascade Gateway, people living in shelters. I've talked to the homeless service providers for about half of the organizations in town. Everything from St. Francis Family Shelter, UGM, Simonka Place, Community Action Agency, Center for Hope and Safety, the list goes on and on. There are ways that we can leverage the case management at each of those facilities to make sure that we are actually serving people. So here's how you end homelessness. You have outreach on the streets to meet people. They transport them to shelter. At shelter, you have a case manager, and you need a case manager who understands the needs of that person. But then what? And what I hear over and over again from these shelter providers is that the narrowest point of that funnel is the tiny pinch point at the bottom. That's the destinations that people need to exit to. We can't put people in shelter forever. It's over $1 million a year to run that navigation center of 75 beds. So we cannot shelter all individuals who are homeless right now in Salem. We don't have the kind of bandwidth to do it. And again, that's not a permanent home. So affordable housing is really at the end of the spectrum. The only other things that we need to continue to do, drug treatment and mental health treatment. We see more than our fair share in the city of Salem, and this necessitates working with the Polk County and the Marion County Public Health Offices, because they're the ones who have the authority, the jurisdiction, and the governmental resources to help us with these challenges that impact all of us.
Would you change anything about the city's current approach when it comes to enforcing public camping ban restrictions?
I agree that the homeless services team is getting results. So just as a reminder to folks, I voted in favor of the camping ban. And so our officers have been hard at work along with other outreach and service providers. There was a Statesman Journal article in January of this year, I believe, where they said in that article that the number of unsheltered had decreased from 400 to 125 to 175 in Wallace Marine Park. This shows that progress can happen, but it takes time. Now, you could add even more homeless services team officers, but remember, this only works if you have destinations for people to go to. So again, I've talked to some of the homeless service team officers, and they will tell you that I can tell people not to camp here, here, and here all day long, but if there aren't enough shelter beds, there's no place for them to go. And then if all the shelter beds are full up because there isn't enough affordable housing after they exit, you're going to continue to see those bottlenecks. So I think enforcement is an essential aspect to any homelessness policy for any city, but it doesn't end with enforcement. If you're not creating avenues for people to lift themselves up and change from within, then enforcement alone will not do it. The only other point I would make, and I think this is important for your audience to know, we cannot arrest our way out of homelessness even if we wanted to. Right now, the Marion County Jail is budgeted for about 470 beds total, and 430 beds are taken on any given time, give or take. Obviously, there's fluctuations, there's ebbs and flows, but with over 1,800 people experiencing homelessness right now, and most of the beds already occupied at the Marion County Jail, this is just not going to work.
So, speaking of public safety, what's one concrete way you would improve public safety in Salem?
What's one concrete way I would what?
Improve public safety in Salem.
I think I've already covered that. I think the REACH team is how you emphasize what we're doing. The homeless services team, which we unanimously doubled recently from 2 to 4, I'd like to get more data on what that movement looks like. What kind of results are we getting from doubling the homeless services team? Remember, the homeless services team is all police officers. So I would like to get about a year's worth of data on the HST. In the meantime, I would like to see more work being done with the Community Violence Reduction Initiative. This was an incredible initiative. I think we started talking about it back in 2023. There were community conversations in 2024, and then we implemented it in 2025, where police were doing targeted enforcement and getting real results, and working with community partners like Salem Leadership Foundation to address the root causes of community violence. And I believe, as Salem Reporter has already reported, there was a 20% drop in violent crime in the year 2025. That is huge. That is a testament to the leadership of Chief Womack and to all of our men and women in law enforcement and all the community partners who are participating in the peace walks and all these other things that are working together. So CVRI, continue to invest in that, continue to invest in the HST, continue to invest in the REACH team, and continue body cameras indefinitely. This is something that transparency advocates and police officers can all agree on. Body cameras hold people accountable on both sides of the camera.
Thank you. And this is another one from the audience. I think it's an important one. It's from Zoe Harper, age 9. What inspired you to run for mayor?
I was born and raised in this community. Thank you, Zoe. And I look forward to seeing you at your candidate forum. I started volunteering when I was 13 years old, so guess what? You beat me. And I find such joy that comes from public service. I'm a career public servant. I'm going to get a little personal with you here. Growing up, I was on the short bus going to school because of my hearing disability. And I got to tell you, there was nothing like that feeling of the short bus lurching its way over the speed bumps to get into Salem Heights Elementary School and feeling different, and not in a good way. All the kids on the bus with me had disabilities too, but they were a lot more severe disabilities, intellectual, physical, complete deafness, etc. I didn't know how to communicate with them. And I didn't know if I belonged anywhere. So it took me a long time for me to find my way. And I got, bullied, I got made fun of, and all of those things ended up turning me into a fighter. Because now I get to be a voice for the voiceless. And that is something I've done for nearly 20 years. I was a lawyer at the Oregon Department of Justice, and I kept child molesters behind bars, rapists behind bars. Those were my people that I held accountable. And then after working in that sphere for so long and having the secondary trauma and the nightmares to prove it, I led a wellness movement for the Oregon State Bar. That's the organization for nearly 19,000 lawyers and judges around the state. And what I saw is that everyone has been through something. Everyone has something that can either push them down or it can be a catalyst. You can push yourself down or you can get fired up. And I chose to get fired up. And eventually, I joined a nonprofit, and now I get to stand up for abused and neglected children in foster care. And then along the way, I became a city councilor. I'm almost done. And the thing is, Zoe, that you will learn what is your fire, what is your passion, what keeps you up at night, how can you make a positive difference in the world. To me, a life of meaning is the only life worth having, and I'm doing it right now. I'm living my best life. I really am. This is where I was born. This is where I was meant to be. And getting to stand up for other people every single day, the poor people who are desperately working 2 jobs to keep a roof over their head, those are my people. The people who are finding their way to sobriety, those are my people. These are your friends. These are your residents. These are your fellow neighbors. And Salem needs a champion for the most vulnerable among us, and that's me.
I had a quick follow-up question on that theme. Where should 9-year-old Zoe volunteer in the Salem community?
My goodness. Zoe, I think there are a lot of ways that you can support. At the Salem Public Library, I know that they have some incredible literacy programming, so you can be a champion for your peers. You may have some classmates who are struggling and they're too shy or too embarrassed to ask for help. You can help them. There's something about peer mentorship. You see this a lot in other capacities. I helped form the Marion County Military Veterans Treatment Court years ago. This was a court that we formed because there were military veterans who were coming back from active duty and they were experiencing symptoms of PTSD, and they were getting in trouble with the law, to be frank. And so we created a treatment court for them, just for them. That's kind of like a diversion court, but for military veterans. And we knew along the way that having a peer mentor would be essential to the success of that program. So be a peer, tell your friends that you believe in them. Those 4 little words, I believe in you, can change the world.
So you have said a number of times publicly that if elected, you would stand up for Salem's poor, calling yourself a champion of the voiceless. What 3 concrete actions can you as mayor take to change the material circumstances of people struggling in Salem?
Thank you so much. So first of all, we have to continue to prioritize affordable housing. I voted to help create the Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund to be placed on your ballot back in 2022. And thanks to you, the voters, that infrastructure bond measure passed. That $10 million, we've spent some of it, but some of it is still on the table. And so I stand ready to work with our developers, both public and private, to continue to move the needle on affordability in Salem. When you can afford to live indoors, a lot of other challenges disappear. It means now you can save for a rainy day fund. Now you can pay off those medical debts. Now you can start saving for college or buying healthy, nutritious food for your kids. A lot of things get better when you have more affordability. And so we should be working with the Salem Housing Authority and with developers to spend down that Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund. Next, there are some other projects that are on the way that I would like to see the City of Salem specifically support. We worked behind the scenes to help create the Gussie Bell Commons project. They recently celebrated a ribbon cutting ceremony for about 120 units. There's a phase 2 in the works. I want to work with them and see if there's anything the city can do. Do they need anything from us to get that phase 2 over the finish line? Because that is affordable housing for families, because they have apartments that are 4 bedrooms. So that's designed for families, not just singles. So I think that would be number 2. And then in terms of the third thing, I think we need to continue to invest in the things that people can sometimes not afford to buy. Our library. Our library is a third space for everybody. You can walk in, you don't have to show ID, you don't have to pay a cup of coffee for the privilege of sitting down, you can just exist. And so we have to continue to prioritize that third space for kids who want to find a quiet place to study, for seniors who want to find a sense of belonging, for people who are looking for a new job or learning a new skill. We have to continue to invest in the things that people cannot afford to privately buy. If you can't afford to buy every book that you want, that's why you have a library. Same goes for our senior center as well. Center 50 Plus, it's an extraordinary resource, and there are a lot of low-income seniors that depend on that free lunch program. I heard the other day about there's a Salem resident, I was door knocking, and the resident said, well, I don't use Center 50 Plus myself, but I know someone who does. And she goes to that Center 50 Plus first thing in the morning and stays there until they close, because it's a safe, dry, warm space for her to just belong. So continue to invest in our parks, continue to invest in our senior center, continue to invest in our library, the things that lower income residents can't necessarily afford on their own.
You've said a few times that you would be a more transparent mayor who respects the rules. You and your colleagues on council also indicated your support for House Bill 4177, which has been criticized for adding secrecy around public meetings. How would you as mayor improve public transparency and accountability?
I'm really glad you asked that question. You know, I've seen 3 mayors now on my time as council, 3. And to this day, I still feel that this is one of the most underutilized resources in city government. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when I'm out door knocking or talking to residents, people don't know who the mayor is or what she does. They have no idea what the mayor's plan is for addressing homelessness, for building affordable housing, for attacking climate change, how we're going to fund our police department, our fire department. You should know the answers to those questions. They should be on the tip of your tongue. I have a better ability to communicate. You probably all see me on Facebook. I communicate early and often. You deserve to know who I'm meeting with. You deserve to know what my thoughts are on some of the biggest issues facing our city. The office of the mayor should have robust communication channels, multiple ones, in multiple languages, so that everybody knows who the mayor is meeting with. And, if I may, the mayor should come to this debate. And not just this debate, By my count, there are 4 that she is skipping. This one, the Capitol Manor debate, the debate hosted by a Northeast Neighborhood Association, and the debate hosted by Zoe, our 9-year-old intrepid member of the audience. I mean, this is dereliction of duty. If you are the mayor of the capital of Oregon, you must respond to questions from the public. You must make yourself accountable and available. Note, and you shouldn't know the questions in advance. You shouldn't be able to just read off a script. You shouldn't be able to charge admission of up to $75 for the privilege of attending a live debate. And you should not refuse or just outright ignore invitations by members of the community who just want to hear what your vision is. Tonight, you had the opportunity to ask me questions, and of course I said yes. Of course I said yes. And all of the other candidates came too. So all of those other candidates, all 8 of them running for council, they deserve your support too, the recognition that yes, if I want to earn elected office, I need to earn your trust. I need to earn your support. So if you choose not to be here, I guess you don't think you need any of these people's votes, right? So I think that this is, and again, it's not limited to just this debate. To my knowledge, there are 3 others that she is skipping. And I think that that is something that the voters need to consider when they make their decision in May.
And our last question here is from the audience. Do you have ambitions of higher office? Is the Salem mayor's seat a stepping stone for another position?
Thank you so much for that question. So as someone who was born and raised in Salem, I have always found community service and public service to be my highest calling. So right now, I see a city in transition with a lot of challenges, and my focus is on doing everything I can to protect, support, and uplift our city. Those are my priorities. And I hope to have a very long career in public service. I really do. I'm 45 years old now. I started volunteering in Salem when I was 13, and I'm not done. I'm just getting started.
Let's give you 2 minutes to make a closing statement. How about that? And I do mean 2 minutes.
Well, folks, I want to thank you for your time and attention. And I want to start by thanking my family who has believed in me since day one. I want to thank all of my teachers, my coaches, my music teacher from the Salem Kaiser Public Schools, because you believed in me before I did. Ultimately, serving as your mayor will be the highest honor of my life, and I will never, ever take it for granted. If you visit my website, Elect Vanessa Nordyke, you can learn a lot more about me and what my voting record has been. You'll be reminded that I voted against the payroll tax because I felt that working people would be on the hook while wealthy retirees wouldn't pay a dime. You'll see that I have helped to create hundreds of more shelter beds and hundreds of more affordable housing units to address our homelessness crisis. You'll see that I've helped us create our first ever climate action plan, finally joining several other cities around the state of Oregon to address our pressing challenges. But at the end of the day, folks, I am here to communicate with you. I feel that the city of Salem has had low expectations placed on it forever. We should be a city with a roof over every head, a city where everyone feels a sense of safety, a sense of dignity, human rights with no exceptions. This is a city where local businesses should be supported, ones that were homegrown right here in Salem's backyard. I look forward to doing my utmost every single day to make Salem shine, and I will always, always share the credit. We recently closed a big budget deficit gap. No member of council did that alone. You did that. The voters did that. So the only way that Salem will continue to get better and better is if we work together. Thank you so much. I'm Vanessa Nordyke, and I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you, Vanessa, for spending some time with your fellow Salem residents and with Abby and Joe. I want to remind you, if you'd like to have coffee with Abby and Joe on Thursday morning to talk about what you've heard tonight, send us an email at rachel@salemreporter.com. I would encourage you to follow Salem Reporter closely. In the coming days, we will be having very detailed, in-depth coverage of the city issues and the candidates. And I want you to remember one thing after you've listened to the candidates this evening who have spent their time with you, that again, it is you and not the candidates who will set the course for the future of Salem. So be voting, be active. And with that, I bid you a good night.
Hi, I'm Joe Cease, the City Hall reporter for Salem Reporter, and today I'm here at the Elsinore Theater. We just had our town hall for the upcoming election on May 19th. We had 4 incumbent city councilors and 4 challengers, and we heard from all of them. And we heard from one mayoral candidate, Vanessa Nordyke, and we got a good sense of what everybody's all about, and I think it was a wonderful night.
And if you head to salemreporter.com, Joe, myself, and our colleagues are going to be breaking down tonight's events, summarizing the key points, and then we will continue to cover city topics, everything from homelessness to public safety to development, very closely in the months to come.
Thank you.
Thanks.